We've had a great week, haven't we? All this week we have been using the pattern of a superhero story, right? To help us understand the amazing and real superhero story that we are all a part of. Now, we've been talking about the 7 things that are part of a superhero story, right? Can anybody tell me what they are? Can you stand up and tell me? Yeah, we need a place, a hero, a bad guy, problem, fight, a victory for the hero, settling into life again. That's perfect. Good job. Now, we want to go a step further, okay? And we want to take those same 7 things or 6 things that we've talked about so far and actually fit them into our story. It doesn't help us just to know that list. We have to know what is our story? What are we living in? What do we need to be aware of? So, you can stand up. What is the place of our superhero story? I'll stay over here. The place is heaven and earth. So when we do this, let's say heaven and earth. Okay, here we go. Heaven and earth. Who's the hero? That would be God. So then when we do this, we're going to go God. Okay? And when we say the bad guy, it's Lucifer. Okay? Let's try those first 3. Okay? Heaven and earth. God. Lucifer. Perfect. Those are the first 3. Now we're going to turn our board over because that's what helps us know what the second 3 are, especially the problem, the victory. The fight and the victory. Okay. So then, the problem. It's sin and separation. Okay? So let's do the 4 that we have. We know heaven and earth, God, Lucifer, sin and separation. Okay? Now, the fight. The fight is the cross. Okay? So let's add that. Heaven and earth, God, Lucifer, sin and separation, the cross. Now we've come to victory. Okay, the fight, the victory for the hero. And we're using 2 hands and we're using 2 fingers on each hand because that's really important. One hand stands for what Jesus has done, his death on the cross for paying for our sins, his resurrection from the dead to give us new life. That's what Jesus has done. And the 2 fingers on this hand stand for what we need to do. The first one is believe this information, and the second one is trust it. Trust it, because we can know all about it in our head, but if we do not turn back to God and trust what Jesus has done for our sins, then we have not taken the victory for ourselves. So that's why this is. So when we do victory, we're going to say, Jesus died and Jesus rose again. I believe and I trust Jesus. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Here we go, from the beginning. Heaven and earth. God. Lucifer. Sin and separation. The cross. Jesus died and rose again. I believe it and I trust him. Perfect. Now we're down to the last part of it, which is we're going to settle into life again. Okay, that's where we are now. So we called Summer Quest this year Your Place in a Superhero Story, right? And we know a lot about this story now, don't we? And really our place in it. And yesterday we saw that the team that we belong to is really important, because knowing what team we're on will tell us what our place is in God's story. Whose side are we on? Are we on God's side? Are we on Lucifer's? We know that all people are always in God's story. But you know what? Not everyone is on God's side. That's a big deal. There are lots of people who have decided that they don't want to turn to God. And they are choosing to believe Lucifer's lie that says, you can be good without God, you don't need him. But when anyone tries to live without God, their place is to be stuck on Team Adam with its sin problems and with its death problem. And they are unprotected from Lucifer and his deceit. That is not the place we want anyone to be in this superhero story. Now, to be on Team Jesus is the opposite of what it is to be on Team Adam. So think with me, what are some of the opposite words that will help us describe what it is like to have your place be on Team Jesus? What is the opposite word from being stuck? How about, maybe you told me, free. I'm free. How about, what's the opposite of having sin? Of course, the real opposite might be having no sin. But the word we're going to use is, because this is what God does for us. I'm forgiven. Not stuck in sin. I'm forgiven. What's the opposite of being in death or dead? Of course, alive. What's the opposite of being separated? Being connected. Connected with God. And what is the opposite of being unprotected? Safe. That's the description of your place in God's superhero story when you are on Team Jesus. God made you a member of his own family, a member of his team. He gave you a kind of spiritual aliveness, the same kind he has. He gave you his own spirit to be your coach. And he makes his own superhero power and strength available to you. Now, the Bible calls this place in Jesus. That's the place that we are. We are in Jesus. And it's a place of great love and kindness. And we have a visual that we need to put on. It goes on the other side, but it tells us how this works for us as we live on earth. To be in Jesus. Now let's put the earth back on. And I have this little visual. And it shows, it's a heart, which of course symbolizes God and his love. Has the cross, and it has the words, in Jesus. And what this symbolizes then is where we, as we live on earth, where we are. When we view our connection, with God from earth's standpoint, it is through Jesus. When God looks at us from his heavenly standpoint, it is through Jesus. We can interact together through Jesus, because of Jesus. And our action that shows that we're settling into life again is this one. And it's a confident stand in God, in our place in Jesus. That's why we chose that particular motion. Just think, the good and omnipotent and daring God has made sure that you have a wonderful place in his story, the best superhero story ever. Both now and forevermore, you have a place. You know, our picture board has helped us to understand a lot about God, about Lucifer, about earth, about the cross of Jesus, about our place in that story. God is amazing. And I'm excited for you to learn more about him. And I encourage you, read the Bible, Go to church, go to Awana, go to weekday Bible school. Take advantage of every opportunity that you have to learn more about God and to trust Him more, to grow in that. Now, we have finished those 7 parts of our superhero story, but there is still a piece of our story that we have not completed. See if you remember what it is. We haven't talked about the other half of the mysterious prediction that Jesus made, the one about the heel and the head. Well, remember, that's what he said when he was with, that God said to Lucifer when he was in the garden with Adam and Eve. And we learned that what Jesus experienced, Lucifer thought it was a head wound, but it wasn't. It was a temporary pain. It was the heel wound, the bruise, the crushing. It was painful, but it was temporary. So if Jesus got the heel bruise, who gets the head bruise? Yep, Lucifer does. Lucifer is still around, and he has not changed his traitorous, rebellious ways. He knows he's been defeated, but he's still deceiving people. He's lying about God, and he encourages people to rebel against God. Just as he's always done, he continues to use people as his weapons against God. He does it here, even here in Newton, Kansas. But the day will come when God will destroy Lucifer and his followers. And his exact time and way is all planned out. The complete victory belongs to God. He will make everything right. And until that happens, our place in victory and in safety in God's superhero story is in Jesus. We stand in his protection, in his power, and his authority. That's why we chose this verse for this week and for today. This is what it says. I'm sure you remember, and we know it from our song. Little children, you are from God, and you have overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Remember how we noticed on that first day how much bigger God is and his goodness is than Lucifer and his rebellion? God himself is the one who is in us. And he is greater, way greater than he who is in the world, which would be Lucifer and his followers. We don't need to be afraid or to be worried. Remember, in Jesus, you are safe and strong and secure.